Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shift the Journey. My name is Tito Amogus. I'm your host. I had a little issue with my guest tonight. Um, couldn't get a hold of him. So, hey, I guess I'm the guest tonight, huh? Unless somebody wants to drop something in the chat and it's like, hey, I'll answer your questions or whatever. So the purpose of this show is just really to provide some knowledge, about people's journeys. Normally, I'm interviewing somebody and I'll ask them some questions and they talk about their journey, how they got from, one career field to another career field or one like career function to another function. Kind of just to give you some encouragement so that you know that there are people out there who have shifted their careers, who've gone from one thing to another, and that it's not impossible. Now, it's not going to be the answer to all the questions, right? Because there's not really one thing that's going to you know be the blueprint, but at least you'll know that somebody's done it. Um, so hey, let's get started. Let's get started. All right. So, what I would normally ask somebody if they came on here, first thing is like, hey, tell me about yourself. Where'd you come from? What did you do before? What are you doing now? And so I asked myself that. All right. So I grew up in Southern California and I kind of piddled around after high school, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I went to college in like a couple different places. Well, three different places, two different countries. I went and lived in the Philippines for a year. Came home, had a lot of fun there. Didn't actually go to school. I was supposed to be in school, but I didn't actually go to school. Learned a lot though. Then I came home, tried college for a little bit. I thought I wanted to do electronics. So I went to DeVry, Pomona. Anybody out there in P Town? Went there for like a maybe 2 terms. It was like trimesters, right? So I don't I don't think I was there for full 2 terms, but anyway, I was like, I know I want to do electronics or something like that, something technical, but I don't know what I really want to do. So I kind of like hung out, bummed around, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then my mom suggested, "Hey, why don't you go to the Navy recruiter?" And I was like, "Navy recruiter? Why would I go to the Navy recruiter?" And well, my family history is that a lot of the men on my mom's side of the family, anyway, were in the U.S. Navy. Uh, it was probably it's like 3 or 4 straight generations, skipping my dad, obviously, and then like to me, if I would have joined the Navy, it would have been like another fifth generation in the U.S. Navy. And problem is, I don't really like the water. I didn't know that there were people who get stationed in places and do things that don't have anything to do with the water. But I almost drowned like 3 times by the time I was 17 years old. So I was like, nah, I'm good. And so I actually went to the Army recruiter and I came back from the recruiter, came home from the recruiter, and my cousin, who was in the Army at that time, was like, hey, tell me what they said. And I told him, and he's like, man, you need to go to the Air Force recruiter. Like the Air Force recruiter is not going to lie to you. I don't know. But so I went to the Air Force recruiter and I signed up. So I went to basic training 3 months shy of my 21st birthday. That was that was a whole that's like a whole 5 episodes, man. It was a lot. I ended up staying in for 20 years. So like the first thing that I did was I signed up because I wanted to do electronics. And I ended up getting stationed in Spokane, Washington, or right outside Spokane, Washington, working on air launched cruise missiles. And it was more of a mechanical job than it was an electronics job. But again, I learned a lot, met some really cool people who are actually trying to get together this summer. Hopefully, I'll be able to join them. It sounds like a lot of fun. When after like, I guess your 3 year mark, trying to remember what it was like, but it was like around your 3 year mark, you could apply for retraining, cross training. That's what we called it, but it's like really retraining. That means like you would apply to join a career field that had like worse manning stats than your career field. So like they're super in need of people. And then the Air Force would send you to whatever tech school that was. And the one that the one that I ended up doing was aircraft maintenance. And so I went from working on air launched cruise missiles, which are basically smaller airplanes that explode on purpose, to fixing airplanes that are not supposed to explode. And obviously something happens like that, there's something wrong. But I went into ComNav, communication navigation systems, electronic maintenance. And so I worked on radios and navigation systems and weather radar. And that was interesting. Like the school part to me was interesting. I was going to say I always did well in school. I did not. I was distracted a lot in school, so I didn't do well in school. But I liked like academic things. I liked learning about technical things, and so when it came time to go to my first duty station, I went to Robins Air Force Base, Georgia, and I found out pretty quickly that working on airplanes was not what I wanted to do. And hey, to my people out there who work on airplanes, I know it's not the worst thing in the world, and it's not the it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it was the I like to be outdoors, but I'm not like super outdoorsy. I like to be indoors, but I like to be outdoors on my own time. And my first job, like the first thing I had to do in Georgia, um, it was the middle of the summer, and I had to swap out a GPS antenna on the top of the airplane. And so this is a modified Boeing 707, so it's like an airliner, right? And I remember it being so hot out there in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm scraping the sealant off the edge, around the edge of this antenna. This is like huge. It's not like a, you know, whatever antenna. It's like this thing. Anyway, it attached to the aircraft. The plate was like this, right? And all along the edge was sealant, and we had to scrape it off, and you couldn't scrape it with metal because then it would damage the skin of the aircraft. So it was, I don't know, we were scraping with plastic. I don't remember what it was, but it was really hard to do. It was really difficult. And I'm kneeling down on one knee, and my knee is burning because the aircraft is so hot. And I'm like, oh, and I had to switch knees and then pour water on my knees and all this stuff. I was like, dude, this is crazy. And I thought that was hot. And then I got deployed to the Middle East, and that was hot. So I was gone all the time. One thing about that life is that you're deployed a lot. I would go for like 2.5 months, whatever it was, 3 months, and I'd come home and maybe go again in 4 months or 6 months. And sometimes in that 4 or 6 months, I'd be gone for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or whatever it was. And so bags were always packed. There's always time to go. And I missed a lot of, my kids growing up. And it was rough. I found there was a website that we would go to if you wanted to like apply for a position at a different base or like a different kind of job, and that wasn't like retraining, and you weren't going into a whole new career field. But I'd been in Georgia for like 10 years, and I decided that I wanted to try something different. I wanted to see if I could find an office job. And so I found one at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. And I applied for it thinking, man, I'm not even maybe halfway qualified. I think maybe I meet like half the qualifications on this job description. And I applied for it, and then I got it. I was actually in the desert. I was on another deployment when I found out that I had orders to Keesler. I was like, "Oh, man." So then I was calling my wife. I was like, "Hey, I'll be back home in August, but, we my report no later than date is like October. Oh, no, I'll be back in October, and my report no later than date was December." And it's like she's like, "What?" And so, she had to do a lot of the taking care of things before we moved and, all that crazy stuff. So, um, that job that I applied for, it turns out that they had created a job description that basically it was one job description, but it was for 2 different jobs. And so they brought in 2 people and they're like, "Hey, which one of you guys is good at Excel?" And I said, "Oh, I'll do that." And then the other person was like, "No, I hate Excel." I was like, "Cool, I'll do it." And it ended up being like a reporting analyst, data analyst position. And man, probably 6 months into it, I was like, "This is fun. This is fun." Analyzing data, looking at trying to find like root causes for shortfalls in like projected graduation rates for Air Force basic training and technical training. And I was like, man, I really want to do something like this on the outside, but I don't know how to find out what it is. So I started reading and I went to like the website for the Department of Labor, and you can find a lot there. It's a good starting place, put it that way, especially when it comes to a data career. Any kind of data job, you just have to know, I know now, you just have to know that there is zero naming convention. There's nothing about like data jobs that's like, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what that is. That's one to one." No, because everybody has different naming conventions and different responsibilities and different tools. So it's like, it's crazy. So anyway, I started with the Department of Labor, and it led me in a lot of places. And I eventually found that, hey, if I want to be a data analyst, I got to work on my SQL. And so I wasn't done with my bachelor's degree yet at that time. I'd been in for like probably 16 years. And I knew that I wanted to, that was one of my goals. Like when I joined the Air Force in 95, I was like, before I get out, I'm going to have my degree. And I thought I was getting out in 4 years, and it ended up being 20. And coming up on 20, I did not have my degree, so I had to really bust my butt to get it. Um, Not to say that that's the only way to a data career, because it's not. I know plenty of people who graduated from Nashville Software School. Shout out NSS, who are like quality BI developers, uh, data analysts, you know, and the like. And there's so it's getting a bachelor's degree is not the only way to do it. But for me, like I didn't have any contacts really in the corporate world. I didn't really know anybody, and we were moving from Biloxi to Nashville. And it's like I don't know anybody in Nashville other than my family, right? And so I um I was like, okay, I need to finish my degree. And I just found something that I was close to finishing, and I was like, yeah, it's got like 2 SQL classes. Let's do it, right? It also had some Java classes, and for all you Java people out there, kudos to you. Blah. I couldn't do it, man. It was not my thing. Just not my thing. But for you, cool. That's cool. You can do a lot of cool things, but no, I'm good. So anyway, I finished my degree like the last month before I retired. I retired in July of 2015, and I finished my degree on June 30th. So it was like uh Yeah, it was like 3.5 weeks before my retirement ceremony, and I finally got my, like, confirmation or whatever it's called, that I got my degree. It was pretty awesome. It was a good feeling. So anyway, um, one of the first things I did when I when we decided we were gonna move to Nashville was, like, I need to build my network. I didn't understand really how important a good network was back then. And, I created my LinkedIn profile when I was in going through the transition assistance program, TAP, I guess is what it was called. I don't know what it's called now. But like when you're getting ready to separate from the Air Force, they put you through this like week long process of oh so many briefings, and it was crazy, but it was because it was a lot of information. But the things that were relevant to me as somebody who was going into the corporate world, it was not a lot. It was I felt like looking back on it, I was like, man, it was really, I'm not gonna say it was useless, but it was not helpful to me as a job seeker who had no network. And so anyway, I asked one of my sisters who had been a project manager in Nashville for years, and she connected me with like all the recruiters that she knew. And so one guy was super helpful, Chris Spincic. If you're out there, Spin Man, thank you very much. He taught me like what to wear. That's not a joke, man. I've been wearing the same clothes every day. It's not exactly the same clothes, but wearing the uniform for 20 years. I don't know what to wear to an interview, and I'm not sure that these people at TAP told me the right thing. So he's telling me about like the color of suits that I should wear, and like what goes with that. The what was it, like ox blood or whatever color shoes. Man, I got some shoes. They were so nice. I wore them for like 3 interviews, and then I never wore them again. My wife's like, "Man, those things are expensive, but they're really nice to look at, aren't they?" But anyway, he Spin Man, he set me up with he connected me with some other recruiters and basically talked me through, what I needed to do like in an interview because I didn't know. I had no idea. Zero like zero practice, zero practical application. So he gave me a lot of knowledge, and he's like, all you got to do is get in there. They'll talk to you. And I really carried that for a while, like um carried that thought of like if I could just get in there and people are gonna like me. But like in my experience, I feel like people either love me or they hate me. There's nobody in between. So, you know, it is what it is. But as it comes to interviews, I was just like, okay, yeah, I need to get in there. So anyway, I applied. I kept like an Excel spreadsheet tracking every single job application that I put in, every call that I got back, and every interview that I had scheduled. And I applied for 101 positions. 101. And it was I got like I think it was like 6 interviews total, and at the very end it was 2 job offers. And then I just chose one. I was like, I'm gonna go with this one because it looks like they have like more modern tools, right? I just come from working with Cognos and Excel, and I wanted something else. And so started working like day one, working with Alteryx and Tableau. And so that actually it kind of set me on a journey because I realized how much I liked using Alteryx Designer. And I was curious about Alteryx Server. The company I worked for didn't have it. And I read about it and I was like, oh man, Yeah, I want to do something with that. I was there for that was my first job. I was there for like 17, 18 months. And I think I probably went through some kind of crisis like a lot of transitioning military do, especially people who had been in for 20 plus years. And I took some time off. I took like 2 months off because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if this is the right job for me. I took all these personality tests that told me that I don't have the right personality to be a BI developer or data analyst. And I'm like, what do these things know, man? They don't know me. And so I actually applied to like a bunch of different kinds of jobs. And I really just wanted to get back to what I like to do. And so I applied for a job at the general, and I get a call back from them, and they're like so excited to bring me in. And I went and had an interview, and the guy who interviewed me, Mark, if you're out there, what's up, Mark? He interviewed me, and he's so excited that I was there, and I was like, okay, this looks like a place to be. And so that was fun. That was a good fun 3.5 years. My people at the general, I miss you guys. We had a lot of fun. Um, And then I think somewhere along the line, I was like, hey, yeah, I want to get into consulting one day. I really want to do that. And in 2019, at the Alteryx has a conference every year called Inspire. They had Inspire at it was in Nashville at Opryland Hotel, or yeah, at the, you know, conference center, whatever, Opryland. Anyway, I was standing there talking to Mark, the guy who had hired me at the general. He wasn't there anymore, um, but he was talking about his company that like they had their signs all over the place. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then he's like, hey, speaking of which, here's this guy coming up here who works for them. And he introduced me to this guy named Josh. And so Josh and I had all these conversations after that. And for like a year and a half, I was trying to get hired by Josh's company. And that was a long wait, man. It was really a long wait. And I thought I was pretty good at Alteryx. And then he's like, you know what? At minimum, our people have an advanced certification. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I took the core and I got the core certification. I was like, that was actually pretty hard. And I took the advanced and I failed it like miserably. I'm like, wow, I'm glad this thing is free. But you have to wait a week to take it again. And like, I don't remember how many times I took it the first time or that first go around, my first certification. But I finally passed it. And I was like, yes, finally passed it. And then like COVID hit and things slowed down and there was nowhere to land at Josh's company. And so I just went back to, doing what I was doing, the general. And there was actually, I had actually had another, um, I had another goal. Like when I retired from the military, I was like, I'm going to get my master's. and it's funny because like now I see it. I tell people all the time, yeah, you actually don't need your master's to be a BI developer or a data consultant or data analyst or whatever the case may be. To be in the data field, you don't need a master's degree. There are some companies that they put it on the job description. They say, oh yeah, we require you to have a master's degree. But I've worked places, I've seen twice where they asked for a bachelor's degree and they hired people who didn't have bachelor's degrees because they had the experience. They had the experience and they had the willingness to learn and they were awesome teammates. And so, you know, is that really a requirement when they put it in there? I don't know, man. Job descriptions are they're funny too. Just like job descriptions are funny because they could ask for like all these different things and then you're like, well, I'm whatever 75, 80% of that. And and people like me. I'm a good teammate. And then they're like, yeah, that's the you're the best candidate, or somebody here, and they say you're great, and so we're gonna hire you. So it just it just depends, what what the hiring people are looking for. But tell you, I didn't need a master's degree, but I wanted one, and I quit like 3 times until my last boss at the general, John V, was like, "How close are you to getting your master's?" I said, "I'm done with that thing. I'm so tired of it. I keep failing the same stupid class." And she's like, "How many classes do you need?" And I said, "2." And she said, "You're dumb." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's so dumb. Why would you stop? Just finish. Just finish." And so I finished it, and in 2021, um, I'd already moved on to my next job, but man, it felt so good to get that. Just you know, just reaching some goals, right? But anyway, I knew I wanted to get into consulting, and so consulting. Let me tell you the difference between. People often ask me, "Hey, what's the difference between consulting and like working at another job or whatever?" I'll tell you. One thing is that all the tools that people talk about pretty much available to you. All the tools and the you know, maybe you're not going to use all the tools like for every use case. Maybe there are some that are favored over others, just depending on what the client is looking for, or maybe the capability of the tools. But you have the opportunity to learn so much from um, people who there are people that I work with who've been doing it a very long time. And so they ask all the right questions, take all the right notes, and it's definitely been a learning experience. My last job was at it's more of a like a BI consultant, and it was crazy. I'm working with these people who, like I said, when I started taking the certification test for Alteryx, I was like, man, I think I'm pretty good, and then I realized I'm not that great. And when I signed on at my last job, I worked with a bunch of people who are really, really, really good at the tools. And I'm like, man, how can I get up to your level? Boy, they threw me in the deep end, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff, for a long-term client that was like, wow, these things were never asked of me before, but I sure am growing. And so I don't know. I guess yeah. Now at my current job, people on my team look to me for like my expertise in Alteryx. I mean, I've been using it for 8 years, and I still I still look up to those guys that I used to work for and work with, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how you're so good at the tool. I don't know if I can wrap my head around some of these things. But anyway, that's um that's where I am now, and that's pretty much my journey. I There's so much to talk about that I'm like, dude, I don't have time. I don't think you want to see me on here like talking all about me and all that, talking all about my life. Um, but just know, if you're out there and you're maybe looking for a different like a different stream, a different, like a divergence, of where you're going. Maybe you're looking for new challenges. I'm not going to say, hey, go into the data field, because it's honestly right now, I've seen a lot of people, getting laid off. It's kind of brutal out there. But I will say that, once you find what you want to do, you can chase it down and just know it's not going to happen overnight. It never does. My first guest on the show was Michael Norman a few weeks back, and you'll look at his LinkedIn, and he's got so many things that he did, from the army to Starbucks to, working at a university to, uh, sales and all these different things, and like BI developer at the end, not the end right now, no, data engineer right now. Um, you'll see that like there's no one way to get where you want to go, but there are people out there and resources out there that could help you get to where you want to go. People, I don't mean like, fixers are going to fix your problems, but like people who have some knowledge or expertise, or just a testimony of like, hey, this is where I came from. This is where I am now. This is where I'm going. If you want some information, hit me up. We'll have a chat. And I'm one of those people. It is my passion to help people find where they fit in. You know, Back in the day, Warren G said, "Can I get in where I fit in?" And that's really a thing. It's tough to work in a field that you don't feel like you belong in, for whatever reason. Everybody has their own reasons, but it's, I think, tougher when you feel that way and you feel alone. You feel like there's nobody there that can help you, give you information, or even who had any kind of experience doing what you want to do. And, going from the Air Force to the corporate world, the other branches always make fun of us and they say, "Oh, you guys are like a corporation anyway." But no, I beg to differ, my friend. I beg to differ. This was not at all like the Air Force. But yeah, so just know that you're not alone, and if you want to talk to somebody about transitioning from the military to the corporate world, or you want to talk about like career shifting, or you want to talk about Alteryx, you got any questions, hit me up, connect with me on LinkedIn, and we'll have a chat. So that's going to end my stream for today. Thank you for showing up. And we'll see you next week. Hang on, let me look and see who I have on for next week. Hopefully they show up, right? Let's see. I don't know what happened with Brandon, but I wonder if it was a time zone thing, because he's in California and I'm in Mississippi. So it may have been just a misunderstanding on like time. But let me see who I have up next week. If I can get to there. Come on. Episode 5. Who do we have? Oh, speaking of Alteryx, I know I spoke about Alteryx a lot today, but we have up next week. Hopefully he can make it. I'm going to confirm with him this week. Trace and Marks, Alteryx Ace. He's like an OG Alteryx Ace. I had the pleasure of working with him at my last stop. Good dude, Air Force brat. Lots of fun stories with that guy. I always have a good time when I get to talk to him. So hopefully I get to talk to him next week. But hey, Brian, what's going on, man? All right. I saw him in the chat and I was like, hey, I know that guy. So anyway, yeah, I'll see you next week, and keep a lookout for that invite. And if you like the show, go ahead and share it. Let your network know, because there could be somebody out there that you don't know that maybe wants to change jobs and they have no idea how to do it. All right. I'll see you next week. Bye.